Donald Trump has hit on a certain fault line by delving into the question of whether Kamala is more black or more Indian. And this gives you a sense of how allergic the corporate media is to this conversation. I'm, of course, on the record saying that this is off message. It's undisciplined. It doesn't help him. But this is a kind of a different question that this raises here, this piece of video. So here is Rayhan Salam bringing this up and, getting the Jon Stewart on Colbert treatment, as Russell said earlier. Really didn't want to let him finish.
This is necessarily a good thing, but what I will say is that for a lot of Americans, particularly a lot of Black Americans, there is some sense of discomfort about the fact that when you look at high-profile, high-status, successful Black Americans, many of them are themselves multiracial, first or second generation Americans, immigrants or kids of immigrants, or they're themselves intermarried. There are some folks, there's a group called the American Descendants of Slaves, ADOS, a kind of emerging movement that you see in some spaces where people say, hey, wait a second, you have folks who are not part of this multi-generational, long Black American story who are claiming this mantle. I'm not saying that's necessarily a good thing, Lulu.
I'm just shocked that this is an argument that you are putting forward.
This is something I'm talking about as an analyst to describe the fact that the Black community is not a monolith. There are a lot of complicated, conflicted feelings. More than twice as many Black Americans oppose intermarriage as white Americans.
If your skin color is black, you're black. It is a completely ridiculous argument to be made.
And let me tell you, just to speak to that for a second, I dated a girl from Haiti for a while, and the perception of where you would get the pushback from was completely the opposite. When we went downtown, I never got any shit. When we were in Harlem, you'd get people saying shit on the street, like directly, would be saying shit about it.
In a country where you had the one drop, where you had the one drop rule, where you were actually penalized legally in this country if you had a single drop of black blood, to now say that this woman who is clearly black is somehow suspicious and is wearing a mantle and trying to assume some kind of ridiculous identity.
I'm describing public opinion. I'm describing the fact that this current does exist. And I think that when we're trying to understand the electorate,
let Rayhan talk.
I think it's important to understand that this is one of those cleavages. I do not think that it was a good thing for Donald Trump to use this line of attack. I agree with Kara. Stick to policy.
This is not what Donald Trump was doing. You are trying to explain something. If you asked Donald Trump, if you asked Donald Trump, what were you up to, Mr. Trump? He's not going to be like, that there's just this current in the African-American community that talks about the descendants of slavery. Do you think that is what he was up to? He was going there in order to do what he always does, which is to throw as much as he can against the wall and to see what sticks.
I'm afraid part of what I'm trying to do is actually try to give some insight into the fact that public opinion is changing, it's divided, and there is a big conversation about this. I don't think that this is the best angle to pursue, but I do think that when you're talking about the Black community, he's not looking to win 90% of the Black vote. He's looking at what are interesting cleavages and divides within that population, and this is one of them.
In addition to all.
Yeah, you're not allowed to tell them that on CNN.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing how she takes offense on his behalf.
And he could not have made it more clear that he is not making that case, but he is doing what presumably you would want from someone on that panel to share their knowledge and insight and explain why this could actually benefit him in ways that might not be obvious to white people who don't know anything about that conversation. Isn't that why you'd want him there?
Exactly. Isn't that why you have a panel discussion about the issue, to actually delve into it? And he said, ultimately, he said what I said. His take overall is that, it's a stupid thing to talk about. It's less than 3 months till November. Got to stay on message now, but this is not as damaging. This isn't going to drive his negatives through the roof for reasons I'm about to explain to you. As a non-white person, I have some insight I could bring to this. Well, you said, what do you say? I mean, the panic is just, it's incredible. They didn't want to even talk about it.
Yeah, they do not even put up the pretense that they are there to do what ostensibly is their job, to inform. They at this point, Taibbi, I used a little bit of his article on the UK thing. He's written a lot about this, how when the news decided that after Donald Trump got elected, that they are the press in 1930s Germany and it's their responsibility to prevent the rise of Hitler, it destroyed the entire credibility of the news industry, such as it was at that point. It wasn't great by then, but now it's just fallen through the basement because, of course, that's led to a place where all pretense of not being partisan has gone out the window. Most people in this country are not dyed-in-the-wool doctrinaire, vote blue no matter who Democrats. So you've lost almost everybody by taking that turn, almost the entire country that theoretically your job is to inform. You can't do that job when you pick a side.
Right, exactly.
Please clap.